Good morning, everyone. I'm too was pushing 40, well, maybe a long time ago, but watching calories, no. But what I want to share with you is I see a lot of customers. I see a lot of our clients and what they do with buying notes and how they put things to practice. We operate out of 3 buildings now. They're in Anaheim Hills in California. We're licensed in all 50 states. I think we hold 107 licenses. That's because some states require debt collector's license, loan servicing licenses, and origination licenses if you do modifications. So we're fully licensed, insured, bonded, everything. The thing that I'm sharing with you, I see a lot of loans that go through us. I see a lot of investors. Do you know I have 7,000 something investors that we service for, and the majority, 4,300 and something, own 1 to 3 loans. That's the majority of our clients. We do this 1 loan at a time. We offer this service of the most compliant, the most regulated industry that they're coming at us all sides to prove that the mortgage banker, the mortgage owner, that, face it, we're crooks, we're bad. We try to collect a debt that someone owes money on. We're trying to make this a profitable field to take away the pain. And yesterday we heard that a lot of people have put up walls to stop us talking to these individuals, people that don't speak, that haven't paid their mortgages in years, 2, 3, 5 years. I just testified in Florida on an 11-year delinquent loan that this person's been able to file bankruptcies and fight it. But there's ways to get around that and make it faster. What is so cool is that with the majority of my 1 to 3 investors, we've paid out over $6.6 billion in payments to you as investors. How many people, just so that I know, how many people own notes or are about to own a note in here? Fantastic. I'm glad to see you. And many of the clients here, and I thank Eddie and Bob for bringing us back each year like they have for the past 5, 6 years, that many of you are our customers, and I thank you for being that. You're part of this equation where we've handled thousands upon thousands of loans, and we get to see the things that work and the things that don't work. And this is where I get to share with you on things that work and how to make this work. So we're looking at that, where I said that we're one of the most compliant. We've been rated #1 for 5 straight years for compliance. If it's important to you that the statements are right, the compliance is right, the conversations are done correct, that we do things correctly so you don't get sued as the individuals. Many people don't have the way of knowing that there's 3 monthly statements that have to go out to borrowers, a periodic regular statement and then 2 different bankruptcy statements. If they're in bankruptcy, I mean, we handle all that for you through our shops. We handle a lot of phone calls. So I wanted to ask you, what is the #1 lie that we hear in this industry from borrowers? What's the #1 thing that you hear from borrowers that they're doing? It's not, I already mailed in my payment. It's not, I will mail in my payment in a day or 2. That's not the #1 lie in our industry. Our whole industry exists because of these 4 most neglected words in the promissory notes. Our industry exists where we're buying notes at a discount, we're making deals, we're doing good things for us and the borrower. The 4 most neglected words. Do you notice that? Every promissory note has the term, I promise to pay. But let me just recap that. 99% of the notes have it. Some of the HELOCs or business purpose loans don't have I promise to pay, they're just terms. But that's the #1 broken promise in the industry, that we all exist because of this. Now, if loans are different and all the lies that come in, then why do we purchase loans under one parameter. The one thing that I hear from a lot of our private investors that we work with, well, I buy under these rules. And they usually have 1 to 2 sets of rules, and this is the biggest thing I hear. And if they're speaking to me, I'm going, okay, well, what about, and talk about a variable, that could take effect. Well, the thing is that we strap ourselves to the abilities of purchasing or acquiring many types of notes that we're building. We heard earlier that interest rates are dropping, more money, things are getting more complicated. So maybe instead of staying in the one lane, know that you're on a freeway with 4 lanes and that you can pick any one of those lanes. You can stay in that lane, but you're on the freeway. Let's zoom in the different places and go around. So I'm using one of my children's, my grandchild's toys. Think of a loan as many parts on it. Some have really rough edges. The edgier the loan, the worse it is. There's all types of problems. We'd all like that one little promissory note right there that's up in the corner in that nice, easy loan to have. It's no rough edges. It just fits our parameters perfectly, and there's not very many problems. So if we take each of those loans, do we all remember a toy like this? You get all these variable different sizes, all these different problems of loans that you get. And I'm saying that every loan has a story. Every borrower has their story. And I love the last talk. Just break down those parameters. Take away those barriers. How can we help that borrower's story in coming together to fit it in this one or this side or this side or this side? And we're taking these different stories and getting them all to fit in here, all these little different things. So our goal is to get as many of these loans, all these different problems, these different types of loans, and think of this as your bank account. Just made money on this one. It was a really hairy one, but it had 5 major problems, or, whatever it is. This is your bank account. Hey, we got some loans that we've paid off and we've done well, and we've got it into our bank account. So we'd like that. If we pick that round little easy loan, you guys ever play with one of these? Your kids, your grandkids? And you're looking for the circle. So wherever the circle, there it is. So once you find that nice little circle loan that's easy to fit right into the box, it always goes there. I'm just saying, don't forget all these other possibilities on these types of loans that we have. So I'm a family guy, and if you heard me talk yesterday, it's been 8 or 9 years when I first went to Eddie's to our first meeting with Eddie up in San Francisco. And the thing was to how to get my boys involved into the mortgage business, how to get them involved in fitting their notes, if we were to purchase notes, into the bank account. And now we've been blessed with our first grandchild, and here she is looking for opportunities. She just loves to play at the computer. She's 21 months old right there. And we're going to start them young in our family. What was important to me, my boys didn't even know in their younger months that we were putting trust deeds in their names. I was holding the title through an LLC, but I gave them credit, and they were buying trust deeds and investing. And so about 9 years ago, my son was in his late teens, early 20s. It's time for him to start learning to buy. Now, to get the family involved. I'm very big on family. I was just at the MBA conference, the Mortgage Bankers Association down in, I think it was in Austin, this Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And I sat next to a lady, and she was asking me about family and, the mortgage business, and we were talking about it. And I said how my boys are involved, how I got them involved years ago in putting money into the bank account here for them. And, we talked about IRAs and KIOs and Roths and, all the tools that we're using that we've all learned here. I admit, I learned those secrets here years ago, and we've put it to practice. And she goes, well, how do I get my kids involved? How do I get my boys started? My boy's about to graduate high school this year. He's a senior, and he wants to be an engineer. And he doesn't really know for sure what he wants to do. And we talked about earlier that she did investments. Her and her husband buy rental properties and fix them up and then rent them out, and the cash flow is more than their mortgage payment on the property, and that produces the positive income on a monthly income basis for them. So I said, okay. She says, we don't have money to go buy a bunch of notes like you guys did. And I said, well, it's all relative. I said, lend your son on paper, make him sign a promissory note, talk to him and say, hey, we want to teach you a lifetime skill. I said, lend him $1,000, and on your next rental that you buy, have him as $1,000, but owes you the $1,000. He's borrowing it. I said, tell him that you're going to lend him the money at what the federal government, good borrowers can buy, federal discount rate plus 2 points or 3 points, and make it a variable interest rate loan, and make them follow and track the loan. And then when the deal pays off, or you sell it with the income, I said, pay back the loan and take the profit, and then do it again. I said he wants to be an engineer, then have him be part of the family decision when you're buying your next rental property, and structure the deal. Lend him $1,000, have him structure the deal, have him know that he's made X amount of dollars. And then as you move on, then parlay it. You can never touch the money. That's going to be the deal. Like when we bought our first pool of loans with my boys. For 3 years, they could never take 1 penny out as profit. Never. It all has to go back to reinvesting and so forth. That was my deal with my sons. I said, your deal could be make the deal work. You can never start them too young on doing this. And she loved that idea because I said, this way, because she was saying he didn't have purpose. He doesn't know what he wants to do. I said, everybody loves making money. And as you've heard me say in the prior years, we love the mailbox money, that you get that notice that your payment's in, that the money's been put into your bank account, and then you watch that grow. I tell you, you're going to build a better relationship with your family, with your sons. And could you imagine the legacy of dad and mom helped me do this, or, as it passes down? I think that's beautiful. So here we are looking for deals. Big family thing of doing. That's my next little darling right there, of course, my granddaughter Annette. So we got an opportunity to look at a note that we're looking at this note. This is a real deal. This is a deal that my sons and I did. We formed once they got old enough, we formed an LLC, and it's TJM, Tim, Jeff, and Mike. And so everything is bought in our family LLC, and then they have separate, where their Roth IRAs or stuff owns the notes within the LLC, but we protect it with a corporation. But here's a note, first trustee, the UPB was 106, interest rate 7.5. Payment next due, 2009, and the payment amount $1,245. The loan was seriously delinquent, $47,000 in the hole as of the November 2013. So the way that I look at this loan is this one of my nice round fuzzy loans? Whoops. Did you guys all see that fall? Look at that. There goes my notes. So we got a note that had edges on it. And we're looking at this thing going, okay, how can we make this work? This is one of those problem loans that we were looking at. This had many edges on it, many problems. The borrower owes more than the property value. The borrower is behind 4 years. The borrower is on a fixed income, Social Security, and borrower can't afford current payments. Now, worse matters. The BPO in 2013 came in between $35,000 and $40,000. What do you think that seller thinks his loan is worth? He's not thinking $35,000 for market value on his property. So we're studying this loan and looking at this different problem of what we're dealing with. I have off to the left there, you can see the current balance is 106, and so all the past due payments, remember that was, what was that? $47,000 just to reinstate the loan, and they owe 106 on the UPB. This is a real, I wanted to get a picture of a hairy loan, but I couldn't, those hairy things. This was a real hairy, ugly loan that we were looking at buying. And so we kept looking at it and wondering what we could do if we could make this work or not. Now, this is what I want to share with you guys. We get educated, we learn how to buy notes, we learn the models and the formulas that we're all taught. But you have to teach the seller. You have to educate the seller in selling his note. He's thinking, I got a good note, it appraised at X amount, I know the value's gone down a little bit, but I really don't believe you in this. A lot of your value is selling the seller and buying in on the information that you want them to understand. Here's all the problems. And so if I go to a seller of a note and say, look, I want to be fair, I want you to make profit, I want me to make profit, how can we do this fairly? Look at these problems that we're up against on your note. And they're not my problems. They're all your problems right now, and this is what you're dealing with if you have to foreclose and everything, but I'm willing to do that work for you. So we bought the note. We came to terms. Remember I said that house was worth $35,000 to $40,000? We got that seller down to $32,926.83. You remember the UPB is $106,000. Very reluctant, but he understood that he had problems in this note, and that by working with him and just being honest, here's a copy of the BPO, here's a copy of the AVM, here's the market comps for your area, and we weren't even discussing condition of house yet. And I said, that's our next step, is to show you the roof leaks or something. According to the BPO, there might be some repairs, but we didn't even go there. Just by showing him the facts of what the property was worth, we were able to buy that note. Now, remember, we're coming out of a recession, all the market. I honestly believe that property was probably worth $40,000 to $50,000 is what we were thinking. And that's why I was willing to pay almost $33,000 for this note. So what did we do? We contacted the borrower. Now, if the property is only worth $40,000 and they owe, $160,000, all the 45 payments, the charges, there'd be foreclosure charges, 106. How much money are you going to make on that house, on that borrower? What's the chances of them bringing you current? Slim to none. It's not going to happen. So even though I hear people, and you're going to hear me preach too, that we work with the borrower, we're considerate to the borrower, we're kind to the borrower, in understanding, if the borrower has an intention to stay in the property, make payments, I tell you, you're 80% there. If you have a borrower that is willing to work with you and they want the property, that's what made this note worth money to us, because we had a cooperative borrower that lived in the house for years and years and did not want to move. They were on Social Security. We knew how much money they had and what we were going to do. So what did we do? We took that $150,000, $160,000 in debt and reduced it down to $75,000. Forgave all that money that they owed us down to $75,000. We took their payments of $1,245 and reduced it down to $524, plus impounds and said, you know what, you haven't been paying your taxes or insurance, so we're going to add it onto the payment for you. So I think their payment's like $635 or $650 with impounds. And we forgave everything else they owed on the property. Why did we do this? We made it also conditioned on if they would keep their property current for 6 months. In other words, make their payments on time to us. We'll forgive everything you owe to these new modified amounts. What we did is we helped the borrower get their head back above water. We gave them back the integrity, the embarrassment of they didn't face a foreclosure. And it was a win for us because we were never going to get any of that extra money anyway. But you don't have to tell the borrower that. we don't. We share with the borrower, we're here to help you, and we're here. But in reality, having a $75,000 UPB on the property, that was still more than what we thought the house was worth. But they thought we were giving them a tremendous blessing by reducing half of everything that they owed and brought the payments down to what they could afford, that we saved their lives, basically is how the feeling was. It's a very good relationship. So this turned out to be, so far, a good investment for us. This is a real note that we bought. This is actual case study. So why did we do this? So if you look at what we did, we reduced that 106 down to 75,000 in the UPB column. We took that 7.5% note. Look what my APR jumped up to if they would keep that current. Boy, I'm a nice guy, huh? I'm making 17% interest on that note. But as far as that woman and her husband cared, we were blessings and helping them out. But mathematically, we were making a 17% return if they would keep that loan current on more money than I thought the house was worth. So things are looking at pretty good. As you can see, I purchased it for $32,000. And so the adjusted rate is, does that all make sense to you guys? You know what, because when you have lesser principal and at the higher interest rate, the 7.5, it's on the 75,000, not your 32, and that's why it's a 17% return on the investment. We have models, Eddie has models, for all of you to do this. This is really easy to do. So good news, next 20 months, that borrower made every payment to us on time. We collected over $17,800 in monthly payments. I know that's principal and interest, but I look at that $17,816 on more money than we thought the house was worth. So let's recap. I bought the loan for $32,926. Total received in payments, $17,816. We now have a net investment in that property of $15,110. Not a bad deal, huh? What I'm showing you here is that this took 20 months. As I've preached to my boys and to friends, don't be in it for the quick buck. Don't try to ram something down someone's throat to pocket that money immediately and put it away in your pocket and run away to the next deal and think that you're done. The one and done buyers that buy properties or buy notes. I never like one and done. I love the longevity of the cash flows that come in. My boys have agreed to all this program of that we don't cash out. We're in it for the long run. Now, by this being current, we took it to the next phase. So who knows what OPM is? I love it. Do you know we all do that? We all use other people's money. That's a common thing. You guys use a credit card for your hotel room? So if you paid off before the end of the month, you just got other people's money for free. And that's the beautiful thing about credit cards. If you don't have a credit balance, you're using OPM and working that money for free. And so that's the best thing, is to always leverage and to use other people's money. When you buy your house, you have a mortgage. That's other people's money. Well, the same theory goes for partials or bringing investors in on your note by using this OPM, other people's money. So 21 months later, after this borrower's been making payments, we sold it as a partial. So I have a little bit of a hybrid. The one thing I loved when I met with Eddie and Martha and Bob at a Texas event years ago, they said, there's hundreds of ways. Well, he goes, well, Mike, there's hundreds of ways to do different partials, boy. And I said, okay, I know. So what we do is I do a hybrid of this and sold a hypothecation. I retain the ownership of the note, but I hypothecate. I assign 100% of the payments to the investor through a contract, and he has first rights of taking the note from me if we defaulted. I mean, it's all legal and everything. But this way, we manage the notes. We manage the property. I manage the payments coming in and the distributions and where we're at. So from what I've learned from when Tim and I first went to our first note school up in San Francisco, and it took about a year to learn, we started doing our first partials. Do you know, in the last probably 5 or 6 years, my boys are up to 74 partials now that we own. Do you know how much money they have invested in their partials? Because we were able to buy at a discount low enough to sell the partial on performing notes. Don't sell a partial if it's not a good performing note. You're only going to get in trouble, and it's only going to cause headaches. But this was a beautiful performing note. So look at this. We sold that partial with the UPB of this loan was around it's on the next slide. It was around $73,000 was the UPB of the loan. I'm thinking the house is worth $40,000 to $50,000, so we sold it for $29,000 to make sure the investor had good equity in the property and security. So I collected $17,000 in payments from the borrower, and then sold it to the investor for $29,000. So all future payments went to the partial buyer. I now have a profit in my pocket of $13,889. So from working that lady out by giving her a deal of her lifetime and her thinking that we were, manna from heaven, on this, we were able to make a 42% ROI on our property. $13,000 now positive into our pocket. So how much do I owe on this note now? $0. We have $13,000, almost $14,000 in our pocket by selling this performing note to this investor. So this was 21 months later, that when we sold this, we made sure it was a good seasoned note. So what's the benefit of creating a partial? Who attended the partial schools like Martha's put on the last classes? There were several people there. I tell you, and I testify, that was life-changing theory. Because I've been in the loan servicing business for 40-something years, and I've never experienced that before. And when I was able to put my boys into creating partials and creating wealth without the problems, by making these cash flows working for us. Do you see that remaining equity? Do you guys all understand what remaining equity is in a partial? You guys that took the class, you do. So it's the unpaid principal balance of the loan minus the amount owed to the investor equals our remaining equity in the note. Make sense? So we have $43,000 of potential money. And the reason why I say potential, because you don't know if it's going to pay off, sell short, or pay in full down the road. So when we sold that partial, we have $43,000. So what's the biggest benefit of creating a partial? Watching that residual equity grow. Every single month that borrower makes a payment. You see the balance of the loan on the far left-hand side? See, as the borrower amortizes down with each of their payments, and the investor who invested $29,000 on that first column, and then my residual equity of $43,000, what happens every single month that borrower makes their payment? My partial investor's amount goes down, my equity goes up. So we sold this loan at a 8-year partial at, I think it was 8% to the investor. These are the good loans. So now, this loan that was originally this problem, hairy, yucky loan evolved to kind of a twisted, squished, good, round loan, and now has become the circle, performing, great investment loan that we would all love to have. And so this took 21 months to get it to this stage, to a good loan. So patience, longevity, working with the borrowers. They're really happy, the borrowers. We're really happy. We've pocketed now almost $14,000 from that partial. So how much money, how much equity would I have for you engineer or math wizards if it amortized out for the 8 years? About how much equity would I have, you guys? Anybody? What would you think? I'll make it easy. $63,000 if that amortized out. If that borrower continued for 8 years to make payments to us, it's, as I said, my equity keeps going up. The investor is paid off in 8 years in full, and the borrower would still owe me $63,000 because it was a 30-year amortized loan. Not a bad deal. This is where my boys are banking in their Roth IRAs and their regular IRAs and their investments on these deals, where we have 73 or 74 of those. They have 100 and something notes now, but where they become good performing loans, this is what we've created. This is generational wealth that they'll be able to pass down to their children and go on. So what happened with this loan? And so forth. 65 months later, 3 months ago, September 17th, 2019, the loan paid off in full, 100% of the balance owed. So how did our investor do? It was a family member, we call him Uncle Glenn, and all he wants is his interest check every month, and he's a happy camper. You love investors like that they don't want to mess with loans, they don't want to work with borrowers. Those are we call them the grandma, grandpa type investors that don't want to do any of the work, but they want the interest. So we've paid him 8% interest for 65 months. And so he got a total back on his $29,000 investment of $34,000. So at payoff, you can see his residual of his investment was down to $17,854, and then the unpaid interest for the, during that month of what he was owed. So he got $18,291. Where did all that other money go to from the 75? It all went in the bank account. It's a beautiful thing that this happened. So to recap, the loan paid off. How did we do? We paid $32,000 for this note. We collected $17,800 in payments. I sold the partial for $29,000. At payoff, we got $57,000. We made a profit of $70,939. How would Eddie calculate that return on a zero investment? Good enough, right? Or enough? This is what we were taught. And I'm so grateful for this life-changing thing that we've been taught and can use these tools. And we were nice, we were courteous, the borrower thought we were heroes, and look how this turned out. Now, does every note happen like this? No. Some of our partials, I think in the last year, we bought back 2 of our partials because our deal is if the loan goes delinquent, we would buy the note back, and so we would just pay the partial investor off. But out of all our notes, we bought 2 back this year. That's a very good ratio because sell them right, get them right, and we're selling partials now to family members from 6 to 8%. It went down to 6% this year because interest rates are so low, so it works out well. But this is how we're creating generational wealth. This is how we're bringing family into the meetings of able to do this for my 2 sons. And then our next little searching for opportunities granddaughter, for coming up. This is how we're going to build family. And this is how this loan has now become a superstar loan for us. This loan every day of the week, I would love to just stick right into the superstar pack. As you can see, neat little toy, many variables of different loans, and we can make this work by just working with the borrower. Each deal is different. So I want to thank all of you. I have 5 minutes. Do we want some questions, or are we ready to go to lunch? Question in the front. I promised her I would not. My son was young, and I did a thing on McDonald's once of how they market to children, and I had an Inspector Gadget. Do you remember those? He was about this tall, and I left him in Portland, Oregon after my... I've never heard the end of that. It's been 15 years. So I promised I'm bringing the toy back, this time. It's going to go in the bag if I don't end up dropping all the pieces. But yes, she's going to get the toy back. Anything else, you guys? Thank you, everyone.